Man, the shock factor in all this is just unreal because, let's be honest, John Cena is probably the last guy most people would ever expect to see associated with a spiritual journey toward Islam. Like, this is the same dude who built his name on being the face of WWE, this larger-than-life character. You can't see me. All that energy, then going Hollywood, doing movies, talk shows, the whole celebrity package. So people have this image of him locked in their heads as the ultimate entertainer, the guy who's always smiling, always strong, always in control. And then suddenly you hear that he's exploring Islam, and it's like, wait, what? Because that's not part of the script people have been following for years, and that's what makes it so powerful. It hits harder because it's unexpected, and that shock forces people to stop and think. It challenges the stereotypes we've built around celebrities, especially wrestlers, because we're conditioned to think they're all about fame, money, and the grind. And here's this guy flipping that narrative by saying maybe it's not all about the next movie or the next paycheck. Maybe it's about something deeper, something eternal, and that's where the surprise becomes the story itself, because it's not just that John Cena might be walking down this spiritual path, it's the fact that it's him doing it, and it shows that no one is immune to asking life's biggest questions, no matter how famous or powerful they are, and that's what rattles people. Because if a guy who seemingly has everything is still searching for something beyond himself, then what does that say about us, about what we think we want? And suddenly the spotlight isn't just on Cena, it's on everyone watching, making them wonder if maybe they've been ignoring the same questions in their own lives. It's wild when you really think about this transition, because John Cena is one of those dudes who has literally done it all. He was the top guy in pro wrestling for years, carried the WWE on his back, sold out arenas, became this global superstar. Then he transitioned into Hollywood, did movies, comedies, action flicks, all that. And he lived that celebrity life that most people only dream about, the red carpets, the fame, the endorsements, the money. But at some point, man, that stuff starts to feel kind of hollow. And you see this over and over again with people at the top. They hit that peak and realize it doesn't answer those deeper questions. It doesn't fill that void. And that's where this whole from fame to faith thing kicks in, because it's not about abandoning success or pretending like it didn't matter. It's about realizing that once you've checked every box the world tells you to chase, you're left with the silence of asking yourself, okay, but what now? And for someone like Cena, who's been this machine of discipline, this guy who's always projected strength and positivity, for him to pivot towards something spiritual like Islam, it's not just a left turn, it's a complete reframing of what matters. And that's fascinating because it shows that true fulfillment isn't found in being on magazine covers or having millions of fans chanting your name. It's in grounding yourself in something bigger than your own ego, bigger than your brand. And you start to wonder if maybe that's why you see so many celebrities eventually searching for religion or some kind of spiritual anchor, because fame, as intoxicating as it is, doesn't give you peace. And this potential journey for Cena symbolizes that exact shift, where the external applause no longer matches the internal need for meaning. And that's where it becomes really relatable, because even if you're not rich or famous, everyone's chasing something, whether it's a job, a relationship, a lifestyle, and eventually you have to face the same question he's facing: is this enough, or is there more? And that's why this hits so hard, because it's not just John Cena exploring faith, it's John Cena representing that universal struggle of realizing that chasing the world doesn't compare to finding your soul. Man, the public reaction to something like this is just insane, because you got to understand, John Cena isn't just another celebrity. This is a guy who's been a part of people's lives for decades. Kids grew up with him as their hero. Adults watched him headline WrestleMania after WrestleMania. And then he turned into this Hollywood star that everybody recognized. So when you take a name that iconic and attach it to a spiritual journey, especially something as heavy and often misunderstood as Islam, people lose their minds. Some are like, wow, respect, that's deep, that's brave, he's searching for truth. While others immediately go the opposite direction, doubting him, questioning his motives, even criticizing him, because people get uncomfortable when someone they idolize changes in a way they didn't expect. And it shows you how personal fans take this stuff. Like, they almost feel entitled to their version of John Cena, the wrestler, the actor, the larger-than-life figure. And when he suddenly shifts the conversation toward faith and spirituality, it disrupts that image, and it forces people to confront their own biases. Some people will project positivity and say, man, that's inspiring. If a guy with everything can still feel the need for something deeper, maybe we should look into that. And others will get defensive and throw shade because the idea of Islam itself is still controversial in certain places, and attaching a megastar's name to it amplifies every opinion. The love, the hate, the curiosity, all of it, and social media just pours gasoline on the fire. Every clip, every tweet, every rumor just magnifies the noise, and you start seeing this split where fans are debating whether this is real, whether it's just a phase, whether it's some PR stunt. But the raw truth is, it doesn't matter what they think. It's about him and his journey. And that's the part a lot of people miss, because fans want to own the narrative. They want him to stay in the role that made them comfortable. But life isn't about staying in the box people put you in. It's about breaking out of it. And the fact that so many people are stunned just shows how powerful and unpredictable a move like this really is, because it shakes up the image, it shakes up the culture, and it forces conversations people usually avoid. You know what's crazy? When you think about a guy like John Cena and the path he's been on, you realize he's been exposed to so many different cultures, countries, and philosophies just through the nature of his career. Like, wrestling alone is this worldwide circus. You're performing in the US, Japan, Europe, the Middle East. You're constantly surrounded by different people with different worldviews. And then Hollywood takes that even further, because now you're traveling for shoots, press tours, charity events, meeting world leaders, activists, thinkers, spiritual guides, and all of that has to plant seeds in your head, because you can't just stay in your own bubble when you've seen the world like that. And Islam is one of those things that once you really encounter it, not just headlines and stereotypes, but the philosophy, the discipline, the prayer, the sense of community, it sticks with you. It's not just a religion in the abstract, it's a way of life. And I think for a guy like Cena, who's lived the extreme version of fame, wealth, and non-stop spotlight, that kind of grounded structure would feel like a magnet, because he's been around constant noise and pressure. And then suddenly you're seeing a system that pulls people out of chaos and centers them 5 times a day in prayer. It makes sense why he'd be curious. And you can imagine him meeting Muslim fans overseas, people who look up to him but also live by these values, and maybe that planted questions in his head, like, what is it about their faith that gives them this strength, this peace? While he's surrounded by the madness of Hollywood, that kind of exposure is powerful. And the thing is, curiosity is the real engine of transformation. It starts with little conversations, little experiences, maybe hearing the Quran recited, maybe seeing the discipline during Ramadan, and it chips away at you until you can't ignore it. And for someone who's already looking for something deeper beyond the fame machine, that curiosity becomes a doorway. And I think that's what we're seeing here, not some random switch, but the slow build of years of travel, exposure, cultural exchange, and the realization that maybe the thing he's been chasing isn't in the lights or the money, but in something 1 billion people already found. Man, the symbolism of something like this is massive, because when you think about it, a guy like John Cena, who literally built his whole image on fame, on being larger than life in the ring, and Hollywood, commercials, memes, the dude became a walking brand. And now the idea of him stepping back from all that and saying, no, there's something more important. There's something deeper I need to connect with that resonates way beyond just wrestling or movies. It sends this shockwave message to millions of people who follow him, because what it's really saying is you can have the cars, the mansions, the spotlight, the global name recognition, but if you don't have that internal anchor, none of it really matters. And people feel that in their bones when they see someone like him choosing faith over fame, because it breaks the illusion that all the stuff we glorify, status, money, followers, actually fulfills you. And here's a dude who already had it all, proving that maybe it doesn't. And that's powerful, because now kids who worship him as their hero see him prioritizing prayer, peace, and meaning instead of the next blockbuster, and that flips the script on everything they thought success was. And whether you're religious or not, that move challenges your definition of purpose, and it's symbolic of a larger cultural moment too. Because we live in this age where everybody's trying to build a brand, chase clout, be famous online, and suddenly here's a guy at the top saying, nah, I'm walking towards something eternal instead, and that carries weight, because symbolism works like a mirror. It forces people to ask, if someone like Cena feels empty enough to need faith, what does that say about me still grinding for likes or chasing that next promotion? And the other layer of symbolism is how it bridges audiences, because you've got millions of non-Muslims who love Cena, who might for the first time genuinely look at Islam through a different lens, not as something foreign, but as something their idol chose for grounding and clarity. And that makes it relatable, almost aspirational. And in that sense, his choice isn't just personal. It becomes this cultural icon moment where one man's spiritual path opens doors for others to even consider theirs. And that's why it's so heavy, because the message beneath it all is clear. Fame is temporary. Faith is lasting. What's wild about this whole thing is the cultural ripple effect. Because when a guy like John Cena makes a move like this, it doesn't just stay in his lane, it spills out everywhere, and you start seeing the way media reacts, the way fans go nuts, and even how different religious communities start chiming in, because suddenly you've got mainstream outlets who usually only cover him for wrestling or movies now debating faith and spirituality on primetime. You've got fans online split between absolute support, curiosity, and of course the critics who think it's fake or a stunt. And then on the flip side, you've got Muslim communities across the world who feel this huge moment of recognition, because when someone that famous is linked to your faith, it's validating in a way that cuts through stereotypes. It makes people pay attention. And then Christians, atheists, people from all different backgrounds start weighing in. So it becomes less about one man's choice and more about this big conversation that touches identity, culture, and belief. And I think that's where it gets fascinating, because in a world so obsessed with entertainment and celebrity, the idea that a celebrity could redirect the spotlight towards spirituality forces everyone to stop and process it. Like, what does this mean? Is there something here that we're missing? And you can feel it online, the debates, the trending hashtags, podcasts lighting up with hot takes, people defending him, others doubting him, but all of them talking about something they might normally ignore. And that's what a ripple effect really is. It starts as one decision, one headline, and then it spreads across the culture like a wave, hitting people in ways you don't even anticipate. The bigger picture here is insane, because when you've got someone like John Cena, a modern icon, stepping into a conversation about faith and Islam, it immediately raises questions about the role these public figures play in shaping how people view spirituality and religion. Like, we're not talking about a preacher or an imam or a scholar making a statement. We're talking about a guy who's been this global symbol of strength, hustle, and celebrity, and suddenly his choices start influencing how millions of fans perceive something as deep and personal as faith. And that's wild, because in today's world, people follow celebrities more than they follow politicians, sometimes even more than they follow religious leaders. So when someone at that level starts shifting gears towards spirituality, it challenges audiences to look at it differently. Like, if Cena's saying there's something valuable in prayer and Islam and faith, then maybe that opens doors for a whole generation that might have ignored it before. And that's a double-edged sword too, because it shows the insane influence modern icons have. Like, their personal journeys can reshape cultural narratives, but it also makes you wonder if that's good or bad. Like, should people be looking at celebrities as the standard for spiritual exploration, or does it water things down? But either way, it's undeniable that when someone like him makes that move, it forces these conversations about what spirituality even means in a time where technology, fame, and materialism dominate. And that's why the bigger picture is so fascinating, because it's not just about him, it's about how our society uses celebrities as lenses to view bigger truths, and how one man's path can ignite a cultural shift in how we think about faith in the modern age. What's really interesting is when you strip away the headlines, the memes, the fan theories, and just look at John Cena as a human being, this whole thing could be about personal transformation in the most genuine sense. Because beyond the cameras, beyond the wrestling rings, beyond the Hollywood red carpets, this guy has lived a life under constant pressure to perform, to smile, to entertain, to always be on. And at some point that has to take a toll, and maybe what we're seeing isn't some PR stunt or some calculated move, but a man who's actually looking for real growth, like something inside him saying, I need more than applause. I need more than action figures with my face on them. I need peace. And that's the part people don't always see, because we think celebrities have it all figured out, but they're human beings with the same hunger for meaning. And when you see a guy who built his whole life on discipline, training, loyalty, respect, and all those mottos suddenly pivoting toward faith. It doesn't feel out of character. It feels like the next evolution, like he's realizing the things that gave him strength physically aren't enough to feed him spiritually. And maybe Islam or spirituality in general is giving him that missing piece. And that's why it resonates, because personal transformation isn't about throwing away your past, it's about building on it. And this could be him finally stepping into a chapter where he's not defined by what the world wants from him, but by what his soul actually needs. All right, so here's the bottom line, man. When you look at everything we've talked about, whether it's the shock factor, the fame to faith angle, the public reaction, the symbolism, all of it, what it really boils down to is this. John Cena's journey isn't just about religion or celebrity or headlines. It's about a dude who hit pause on the noise of the world and asked himself the hardest questions, like, who am I really? What do I stand for? What brings me peace? And that takes guts, because most people spend their whole lives distracting themselves from those questions. So whether people love it, hate it, argue about it, or meme it to death, there's something undeniably powerful about watching someone try to evolve beyond the script that was written for them. And if nothing else, it sparks a bigger conversation about faith, purpose, and how we as humans are always looking for something higher to connect to. So yeah, good luck to him on that path, because it's not easy, it's not smooth, and it's not always popular, but it's real. And at the end of the day, that's what matters most. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being open to even having this kind of conversation. And whatever your beliefs are, I just hope you keep searching for your own truth and keep pushing for growth, because that's the only way any of us really get better.